Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We begin first by taking a look at the month-to-date precipitation ranks by climate district, and this is clearly a pretty sizable pattern shift over what we saw in December. A lot cooler air, including a pretty sizable Arctic front that's already made it all the way down to the Gulf Coast, and is going to be initiating here over the next several hours an ice storm in parts of North Carolina. We're going to see multiple Arctic highs coming down over the next 10 days. But as we take a look at this pattern, this is how it shaped up throughout the month of January here. We favored more ridging and therefore drier conditions in the west. The models did actually sniff that out pretty early, and the flow has kind of done something like this. So we've been able to bring in more of those shots at colder air at times into the eastern half of the country. Now, thinking about all of this, the impacts of having winds that have come out of the northwest across the central United States have largely given us over to a continuation of the drought development in the southern plains into the lower Mississippi River Valley. And as you're going to see in this forecast, we're going to help relieve some of this drought down here along the Gulf Coast moving forward. And we will start to get some more snow that kind of comes through on some clippers like this, which will help to fill in that snow hole that we've been talking about here in Illinois, Indiana, and western Ohio. But not too much overall from that. What's important about this is that the pattern that we've been in, again seen here, is going to start to shift around. And we see this already turning up in the models, both in the GFS and in the European model, by the time we get out here to the beginning of February. And the models have all week long suggested the building of a ridge farther to the west, as you see here, possibly a little bit of a blocked pattern with a low over Hawaii, but they've dropped this deeper trough here into the western part of the United States. And then at times run this up over some higher heights here and also some higher heights there, which means ridging at times in these areas, although out here on, this is actually on Groundhog's Day, the ridge is even farther to the east. Now the point of that is to show that if the flow comes around and then ejects like this, this is a better signal for the central United States over through the east to have a much more active time period, colder here and more snow in the mountains. But without a subtropical jet coming into California, that's going to be a drier time period, and the models have certainly gone over drier. Now, support for this pattern does come in the fact that the MJO will likely pop back out into phase 6 and 7. That favors more ridging into the Gulf of Alaska and west. The other piece of this is that normally during La Nina winters, which we still have, and this La Nina continues to kind of roll forward, although it's weakening slowly, also favor more ridging in this area. So this pattern has some sense to it, given that what's going on in the atmosphere, and then we get this out of the models. Temperatures first. We'll still get that active Alberta Clipper track at times in the month of February. But the more mild conditions you see here and running up along the East Coast tell us that we're going to start to see better ridging in these areas. Now, if we end up developing more troughs in the west, that flow has got to go somewhere, and it tends to eject in an area just like that. And that's why we get this precipitation pattern for the month of February that has trended wetter in this area. It has trended about the same, so no trend in the mountains, but trended drier along the west coast. So the big snowpack we picked up in the mountains in December is going to have to carry us through, looks like, most of February as well. And we're going to be kind of watching to see if the pattern shifts and we get a subtropical jet for a miracle March in California. But this trend over here has been substantial. Now, just thinking about that, we do have issues that we're dealing with right now, and that is an ice storm that's possibly coming over here in the next several hours, hitting parts of mostly North Carolina. There's currently about an 80% probability of accumulating a tenth of an inch of ice in this area, and I want to show it to you by going over to our high-res modeling first. So the Arctic front late this afternoon had already brought over the shift in precipitation type to some snow here in Virginia and this part of North Carolina. But what we're going to see is that Arctic front's going to stall. Now the Arctic air is in this high pressure cell here. And on the backside, see there's another weak front coming through. Going to get some snow here coming out of, from Manitoba through the Dakotas. So keep an eye on that as well as I talk about this ice here. But throughout the day on Friday, we're going to continue to see the risk of overrunning. So the shallow cold air undercuts the warmer air aloft. And that's where we're seeing the greatest extent of the ice. Now, all week long, this has kept pushing the greatest threat east with time. And by Friday evening into the overnight hours, that front swipes through Wisconsin, most of the Great Lakes states here, bringing in some light snow, and that presses off to the east. There's another clipper that follows it. See it coming out of North Dakota there into Iowa. That would be on Sunday morning. We'll be watching out for that one. So Saturday night and Sunday morning. Now, to take over from here, we got to switch over to both the GFS and the European. I want to bring up a point I made on Monday, and that the models are actually coming back into better agreement now. So for a while there, the GFS had just a few times where it was not getting the 500 millibar pattern down. And now that they've come back into better alignment, well, you'll see here in the forecast that they're agreeing a bit more on this pattern. So we've already seen the first system clear the east and the clipper that rolls to the Great Lakes. In fact, Great Lakes effect snow here coming because of the colder air. What we've got out of that, just watch as I rock back and forth. You pick your own model, doesn't matter. There's a clipper coming down. You see it here. This is going to be Saturday night into Sunday morning. Now after that, the flow is going to continue to bring flow out of the Canadian Prairie on Sunday into the upper Midwest. And that's just the overall setup with a ridge in the west and a trough in the east. We're going to get that. But we're starting to see the models pick up. In fact, we watched this ever since about Monday night's runs, picking up on the potential for a low developing this upcoming Monday night, somewhere here in eastern Texas or Louisiana. What's interesting is that normally the European model is the slower of the two models, and it tends to train things back a bit farther to the north and west. At least I've noticed that this winter. Not in this case. The European keeps this low farther to the south. The GFS ejects it quickly to the north. Both models have the same system, but this one's trying to bring in quite a bit more snow into New England, whereas the European has got the system farther to the south. And there are several reasons for this. Some of it has to do with the position of the high, the next Arctic high. A little bit different here overall, and the flow around the eastern side is different. Plus the upper level jet stream pattern that's creating this is much farther to the south than the European. But this is out there noon on Tuesday, playing out through the overnight hours and into Wednesday. And again, the models are just got a little bit different look on that next system. They do, though, bring in another Arctic high, little different position to follow that. So we put all that together and we can look at it a couple different ways. Let's do this way first. Next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation compared to normal. Well, you see it. Clipper running down the front range, ridge over the west, so dry in through here. And with the systems forming pretty far to the south, this whole region is going to see more favorable, drier conditions. As you can imagine, the GFS is wetter in New England. To watch this all play out, though, this is what the next 7 days looks like. So you can really see there's going to be an area in through here that is going to miss out on a lot of this precipitation. And the action's pretty far to the south given the depth of that trough. Now, as we've been discussing, there's going to be some light snow that comes in on this. This will be from the Arctic front that's leaving with the ice storm to the south of it here. A little bit of snow in this area, maybe picking up some wet snow totaling 3, 4, 5 inches here. A lot of lake effect snow, and there's our clipper track, plus the snow that's coming down the front range. And remember, with each one of those highs that comes in here, that pushes the flow up against the mountain, so we get some upslope out of that. But where this pattern's going is what's got me really intrigued, because I already showed it to you in the GFS. The European likes it as well. Back the ridge up, move the trough over the west, and have ridging that's going to at times move from here to here, taking that flow around and out. And as you saw, the models for February were bringing up the precipitation in this area. And it's already showing up in the week 2 ensembles. See it right in through here? What I don't like about this pattern is it's not yet the right pattern to relieve the drought that's in the southern plains. Which again, that's the area that I'm very concerned about relieving that drought in the coming days and weeks. So we've got this at least going into the beginning of February, and it will be a very active time period. But it also means that we're probably going to start to see more mild days showing up in this area as we move forward into February. The coldest air anchored over the Canadian Prairie. From there, this is what the next 5 days of temperatures looks like. So again, we're still dealing with these Arctic highs coming out of parts of the Canadian Prairie, but wrapping around the deeper trough anchored between the Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes. So we're going to see the colder air here, but watch this. If you go from day 0 to 5 out to day 5 through 10, now we start to see some moderation in the pattern. And by day 10 through 15, as the trough becomes reestablished, the coldest air is in the prairie, more mild to the south, and the pattern zips right in between the two in through this area. That's what's going to be critical to watch. Another thing that just to bring up here is that unlike last year, when the polar vortex had already split and was very weak at this point in February, polar vortex this year is what I'm drawing now is quite strong. So when it looks like this, the likelihood of getting, the stratosphere to be disrupted in a way in which it can send Arctic air from the Arctic, right out of the North Pole or Siberia, somewhere across North America, is limited. So it seems as though at this point, it's the teleconnection with the tropics, plus the ridging that could form in the Gulf of Alaska to the Aleutian Islands that'll be critical for the pattern, not just for the next couple of weeks, but possibly even through much of February. So we'll watch it, and I'll report back to you again on Monday. Have a good weekend.